Now, let's crochet the arms and feet. We'll start with the arms. We'll make a magic ring to start. Then crochet in rounds counterclockwise. After that, stuff the arms and sew them onto the main piece. The new stitch technique here is A for SC2 tog. I'll show you in detail. Let's start. Mr. in the chart indicates we'll make a magic ring to begin. Let's make an adjustable magic ring. Hold the loop to keep its size. This completes the adjustable magic ring. Move on to round 1. Work 6 single crochets into the magic ring. Don't forget the beginning chain. After that, close the ring. Pull to close the center of the piece. Try to tighten it as much as possible. Then finish with a slip stitch in the first single crochet. If you can't tell the first stitch, count backwards to find it. This completes round 1. Continue with round 2. Follow the chart for corresponding stitch techniques. Note that there's no need to turn the piece. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise. When crocheting, weave in the tail. Finish with a slip stitch. This completes round 2. Trim the excess starting tail. For round 3 to 5, crochet evenly. Turn the right side with clearer texture outward. When counting rounds, count the rounded raised texture like this. It won't be difficult for you. Stuff the arm after round 5. Fluff up the filling cottons before you do. Just a small amount will do. For the final round, we'll do SC2 tog. Here we'll do the decrease in an invisible way. There's a video about it. For invisible SC2 tog, insert the front loop of next stitch. And the front loop of the stitch after next. There are 3 loops on the hook now. Yarn over. Draw through the first 2 loops. 2 loops remain. Yarn over again. Draw through the remaining 2 loops. A invisible SC2 tog is done. Decrease like this. The gaps between stitches are smaller. The fabric is more delicate overall. This is how we do an invisible SC2 tog. After last round, close the round. Enlarge the loop. Leave a 30 cm tail and cut the yarn. Thread the needle. Then pass through the front loops of all the stitches from this round. That's the strand close to you on the stitch. Tighten up. Press flat. The closing is now done. Leave the tail for now. The crocheting of the arms is done. Next, sew the arms on. Let's take a look at the finished project. Consider the side without trace of slip stitch as the front side of the main piece. The arms are sewn onto the front side, on flanks of row 1 from section 3. Close to the border of the edging, with the starting rings of arms facing upwards. You may rearrange the arms if you want. Now, let's sew them on. Here, I'll be working on this sample. Position the arm correctly. Put the trace of slip stitch close to the main piece. Sew the closing first. Then sew a few stitches at where the arm meets the main piece. Leave the top unsewn. Tie and weave in the ends. Sew on the other arm symmetrically. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the arms. Next, let's work on the feet. There are 2 of them. Both are started by a foundation chain. And crochet the bases in rounds counterclockwise. After that, put on the pads. Stuff and sew them onto the corresponding position. The new stitch technique here is T for half double crochet. I'll show you in detail. Now, crochet the bases first. Chain to start according to the chart. Then work 1 SC2 in 1 in the second chain from the hook. Continue crocheting evenly with 1 single crochet and 2 half double crochets. Work 5 half double crochets in the last stitch. Continue crocheting the corresponding stitches on the other side. Finish with a slip stitch. Round 1 is completed. Consider the side with clearer texture as the right side. Trim the remaining tail. For the next 2 rounds, crochet in rounds following the chart. Leave a 40 cm tail and fasten off. Here is what a foot looks like after finished. We'll make the pads, which includes a large one and 4 small ones. The large one is started with a foundation chain, then crocheted in rounds counterclockwise. Follow the chart to complete it, and bind off at the end. I'll show you on this small sample. After the last single crochet, enlarge the loop. Enlarge the loop. Thread the needle. Go through the starting stitch. And back to the braid where the tail is. Adjust it. That makes the edge neater. For the following binding off, use this method. Then place the large pad with the right side facing up. Sew it onto round 1 of the base, near the end with the tail. Leave a small space below round 1. Then sew to the base through the stitches. Make the sewing stitches as invisible as you can. After that, at this end of round 1 of the base, round these half double crochets in the same spot. Embroider 4 small pads. Arrange them evenly at the position you like. Go through the fabric. Wrap the yarn around the needle 2 to 3 times. Do not make it too tightly. Then go to the back. Slightly tighten. 1 French knot is completed, forming a small pad there. Continue with the other small pads. After that, tie off and weave in the ends on the back. That completes the pads. Next, sew the feet onto the front sides of the main piece. Above round 8 of section 1. The wider end should be pointed to the flanks. Leave about 7.5 centimeters apart in between. Let's do this together. Thread the needle. Position them correctly. I'll sew this one on. Sew it onto the main piece through the stitches. Mind to make the fabric more stereoscopic. Place the narrower end at the bottom and wider end at the top. The entire foot takes up about 8 rows. Stuff it with a little filling. But not too much. Pull tight. To keep the fabric standing upright. The sewing gaps are large here on the sample. In practice, you can sew closer. Once done, tie off and weave in the ends. Sew the other foot symmetrically. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the limbs. Next, we'll work on the facial features, including the eyes, the nose, blushes, and the ears. There are 2 eyes. We will start them with the foundation chain, and crochet in rounds counterclockwise. Leave a 30 centimeters tail and fasten off. Sew it onto the front of main piece with its wrong side up. Round the seam of section 1 and 3. Right along this line. And make them centered. Leave about 2.5 centimeters apart in between. Place them vertically. The sewing method is identical to that of the large pad, but with the wrong side up. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the eyes. Next, let's work on the nose. We'll start with the magic ring, and crochet counterclockwise. Then sew it on when done. I'll show you in detail. Start with a magic ring. Chain 1 as your beginning chain. 1 single crochet. 1 chain. 1 slip stitch. 1 chain, 1 single crochet, 1 chain, 1 slip stitch. Close the ring. The nose is now crocheted. Leave a 30 cm tail and fasten off. Consider the side with braid-like texture as the right side. Here, I'll sew the nose on for this sample. Place it with the tail pointing down, between the eyes and centered. Sew it in place with its ending tail. Secure it roughly. Divide the starting tail into 2 strands. Draw one of them to the wrong side, through the stitch right next to the nose. And the other one through the stitch below the nose. This creates a vertical line. Remember to make it centered. Tie a knot with the tails. On the wrong side, hide the tail along the texture. The nose is now completed. Next, let's work on the blushes. We start with the magic ring, and crochet in rounds counterclockwise. The technique is similar to the arms. After completing, leave a 40 cm tail and fasten off. Align it at the top with the top of eyes. Sew through stitches form last round. The method is the same as for the eyes. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the blushes. Finally, let's work on the ears. We have outer and the inner layers. Both are started with a foundation chain and worked back and forth. Sew the layers on before we sew the ears to the main piece. The new stitch here is TV for HDC 2-in-1. I'll show you in detail. First, crochet the outer layer. Chain to start. Then, crochet according to the chart. Do not slip stitch at the end. Continue with row 2. Chain 2 as the beginning chain. It count as 1/2 double crochet. Turn. Work 1/2 double crochet in the stitch matches to the beginning chain. Continue crocheting according to the chart. Row 2 is done. Move on to row 3. Crochet according to the chart. At the end, work a HDC 2 in 1 in the beginning chain. That is, work 2 half double crochets in the same spot. Work into the top 2 strands of the beginning chain. The HDC 2 in 1 is completed. Row 3 is crocheted. Continue working back and forth for the following rows. Work the last single crochet of the last row into the beginning chain. It won't be difficult for you. Leave a 40 cm tail and fasten off. That concludes the outer layer. We will consider this side of the last row, which has a braid texture, as the right side. The crochet method for the inner layer is similar to the outer one. After crocheting, with its right side facing up, place it on the right side of outer layer. Align their beginning chains and sides. You can see the angled part on the edge. For the other outer layer, hold it with the wrong side facing up. And the inner layer in the same way. Assemble them just like that. With the tail from the inner layer. Sew along the stitches of row 2 from outer layer. And the sides as well. If you want no sewing traces on the wrong side, you can sew through the strands on the surface of the outer layer. Or make your own choice. Finally, weave in the ends. It won't be difficult for you. Now, with the tail from outer layer, sew the ear sides to the main piece. Through the front edge section 3. Put the inner points of the ear together, centered with the nose below. While the inner layers faces forward, align the curved side with the curve of the main piece, placed symmetrically. For the outer point of the ear, place it approximately 12 rows apart to the dents below row 1 from section 1. Adjust the position while sewing. To ensure the right position, pull tight to keep the ear standing upright. Weave in the ends after sewing. Sew the other one on symmetrically. It won't be difficult for you. That concludes the ears. The facial features are also done. Next, let's work on decorations. Take a look at the finished project. For decorations, we have flower stems, leaves, tulip flowers, and assembly. First, let's work on the stems. There are 3 in total. One is around 2 centimeters long, and 2 are around 7 centimeters long. The pom-poms for the shorter and longer stems are in different sizes. Let's make this together. Start the stem by leaving a 20 centimeters tail. Then work chains. Until you have the desired length. Leave a tail of about 40 centimeters and cut the yarn. Then, thread the short tail onto a thin needle. The needle should be thin enough to pass through the purl. First, through the purl. Then the small bead. The colors of the small beads for the sample are random. Check the actual project for actual colors. Then take out the pom-pom. Pair the shorter stem with the larger pom-pom. And the longer stem with the smaller pom-pom. When going through the pom-pom, try go through the tight center area. This prevents the pom-pom from falling off. Then back through the previous beads. Adjust so that the stem sits snugly against the beads. But leave a little gap, so the beads hang naturally. Make a knot with the tail at the strand on the wrong side. Then weave the tail in the back loops. That completes one stem. Make the rest in the same way. It won't be difficult for you. Set them aside for now. Next, let's work on the leaves. We will start from foundation chain, then crochet in rounds counterclockwise. Leave a 30 cm tail at the end for sewing. Please follow the chart and finish them. That concludes the leaves. Now let's work on the tulip flowers. There are 4 in total. Each consists of 1 large petal, 2 small petals, and the flower base. The petals are started by foundation chains, then crocheted in rounds counterclockwise. Once done, we join them together and crochet the flower base. Note that the flowers are crocheted with segment dyed yarn. You can choose your preferred color for them. It'll creating different flowers. Let's work the flower together. The petal is similar to the foot base. We'll cut the yarn for the large and 1 small petal, but not for the second small petal. The sample here is ready with the petals. Now, turn the textured right side outward. Continuing with the small petals yarn, work 9 single crochets. Take up the large petal. Start in the 3rd stitch. Work 7 single crochets into the stitches. Make the single crochet at the junction slightly tighter. Take up the first small petal. Start in the 3rd stitch and crochet 14 single crochets. Weave in the tail as you go. Go back to the large petal. Work 7 single crochets. Finally, complete the remaining single crochets on the starting petal. Finish with a slip stitch. Round 1 from the flower base is completed. Keep going according to the chart for the remaining rounds. For the SC2 tog, we make them in the invisible way. When there are a few rounds left, stuff the flowers, but not too much. Keep it soft. Leave a 40 cm tail to close the round. That concludes the tulip flowers. Finally, put them on. You can arrange them according to the finished project. The shorter stem goes in the center front. Secure the top of it between the feet. The longer stem is attached to the flanks of the feet. You may adjust its top according to the position of flowers. Place the flower with the petals facing upwards, and roughly between the arms and the feet. Attach 2 leaves symmetrically on flanks of the long stems. The other 3 leaves are sewn between the feet and underneath the flowers. Note: cover the top of the short stem with one of the leaves. The left flower is on top. Allow them to slightly overlap. Feel free to arrange them as you wish. Now I'll sew the stems and leaves onto this sample. The facial features are not correct. Start by the shorter stem in the middle. Make the braid-like texture faces upwards. Tie and weave in the ends neatly on the wrong side. For the longer stem, make sure the braid-like texture faces upwards as well. Leave a bit stem at the bottom. Sew close to the edge of foot. For the sample, the position of the top is random. You need to arrange it according to the flowers. The tails should also be woven in on the wrong side. Secure the other side symmetrically. Next, sew on the leaves. For the sample, the placement of the leaves is random. The end with tail can be placed underneath the flower stem. This makes it look neater. The tip of the leaf does not need to be secured. The direction of the leaves can be arranged according to your preference. Sew on half the wrong side of the tulip flower. Making its right side faces forward. Note that it should be placed over the longer stem. The middle flower should also be sewn onto the main piece, where it will lie flat. There are no specific requirements for the sewing method. Just sew it securely and nicely. Go ahead and finish it. That concludes the decorations. Finally, let's work on the strap. First, crochet the Romanian cord. Then put on the beads. Lastly, sew it onto round one of the arm. For the Romanian cord, you need to leave a 30 cm tail at both the beginning and the ending for sewing. Check the chart for the exact length of Romanian cord. You can also adjust it according to your needs. Let's make it together. How to crochet a Romanian cord. Chain 2 to start. Insert the back loop of the first chain. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over again. Draw through both loops. Keep the hook still. Turn the cord clockwise. Then, pick up 2 strands like this. Yarn over. Draw through. Yarn over again. Draw through the loops on your hook. Again, turn the workpiece clockwise. Pick up these 2 strands. Yarn over. Work a single crochet. Go on, turn the workpiece clockwise and pick up the 2 strands and crochet 1 single crochet. Repeat this process consistently. Turn the workpiece clockwise. Pick up the 2 vertical strands on the upper left. Crochet until you reach the desired length. Secure with 1 chain. Leave a tail. Fasten off. If sewing is needed, leave a longer tail. This is how you crochet the Romanian cord. After that, proceed with assembly. Here I'll be working on the sample. Thread the tail onto the sewing needle. Pass it through a rabbit bead. We have different beads for different style. Refer to your actual project. Bead for the sample is random. Go through a clarity bead. And sew onto round 1 of the arm. Sew a few times to secure. Then go back through the bead. Sew a few stitches on the Romanian cord. Try to make the tip look neat. Then tie, and weave in the ends neatly. One end of the strap is now secured. Do the same for the other side, thread the bead and secure. Do not twist the cord. Go ahead and finish it. That completes the strap. Up to this point, the entire bag has been fully covered. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website. Susan's Family, Stitch by Stitch, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.